Hello and welcome to Leadership Within. I'm Vanessa and I'm your host today, and I'm joined by...
Myself, Thomas. Hey.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm actually doing quite great, and I just noticed that I've said Thomas, not TK.
Yeah, me too.
I've been, I'm in Poland for a few months now, and I'm using my real name. I mean, TK is also my real name, but it's a change.
So welcome to Thomas. Do I say Tomasz?
No, Thomas is,
Thomas.
What I said.
Okay.
A conman has many names,
So today we wanted to talk to you about this really, I don't know, it's a subject that keeps popping up in my world, and that is blame. And I can remember years ago, I read this book about, I think it was called Beyond Blame.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's one of those things that we talk about a lot in our world of development. And I wanted to talk specifically about how do we take our part in a blame cycle so that we kind of stay empowered.
Ooh, so how do we, it's interesting, how do we take part or take the cycle apart?
Or take my part. So what I mean by that is, if something happens, like say I'm disappointed that someone didn't do it, I have to, yes. I don't like to say this about myself, but one of my instant kind of reactions can be, why'd you do that? To blame. It's one of the toxins that I have to work with. And, it's just a knee-jerk reaction.
Oh, absolutely. I think, because personally, I have a very similar attitude, which is if I don't control myself, it's just so easy to hopefully in a fair sense, put the blame on someone that's obviously at fault.
Yeah.
And, it is a knee-jerk reaction because I guess I can speak for myself. I want to protect myself. It's like, that's not me, it's him or her. It's not my fault that happened, right? Mom, I didn't break the vase. And, since it's always like this cliche of, it was the cat or something. We have to turn on our frontal lobe for a second to intercept that. And it's also interesting when, even if we have the time, sometimes, and I might even see it within myself, there's the drama triangle, or we can go transaction analysis, where we're being the prosecutor, searching for the one at fault.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've even noticed it in my yoga practice. So I've noticed that I can instantly go, I don't like the way she just instructed that. It's too hard. Why did she make the class so hard? It's ridiculous, right? But sometimes when we're under pressure, and I think particularly in leadership, often we are under pressure, aren't we, to get things done, to get them right, to get things moving in the direction that we need to. We can default to this, okay, whose fault is it? And the thing that I have been and wanted to kind of explore is, well, so how do we take our part in that? If a part of us is just wanting to offload the frustration, how do we actually, kind of say, okay, well, what part have I played in it? And sometimes that's easier to do than others, because someone can be so easily the person that at fault. Well, they did this.
It's interesting. It's a story from quite recently. I've been a part of a meeting where someone, let's imagine, it's a completely not appropriate maybe example, but imagine that someone is an accountant and there's a meeting, and in the meeting there's like a term mentioned like debit, and they ask, oh, what's debit? And they're the head of the accounting. And I thought there was a similar situation like this, and I thought, well, all right, so they don't know. But is it such a huge problem, really? Why am I reacting like this? Why am I trying to judge, blame, and so on this person? Well, they're a very talented person and they do a lot in this position. But maybe, there's this arcane and basic term wasn't something they've used recently, or they don't have the formal training in that, but, they're still a great person. And the way, I think, it's a real story. And the way I thought about that is like, well, why? What is it that's causing it within me? What is it that's happening? What's the process that's within myself when I realize that this has happened. Is it outrage? Is it like, oh my Lord, how can it be? I was like, so what, right? What is it what's the need that I'm filling for myself? What's the actual process that's happening? And why is it happening? And what I've noticed is like, it's so deeply ingrained that we try to either place blame or place ourselves in hierarchy or belittle others as prosecutors. And, it's just a way of noticing it.
And so what did you conclude in that situation? Because, I mean, it sounds like you're doing a lot of work to really notice it.
Yes, I was happy with myself that I did not speak up in the meeting when that happened. I just shrugged it off, and I had this particular thought process that I'm now describing to you and our listeners. I was like, well, they're a great person, right? They didn't know this basic term. To be honest, they probably don't have the formal education like I do on that. But hey, it's like I don't have many other things they have. So that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Let's respect and find the best in other people. I was so happy with myself.
I love that. So great job.
Well, thank you. I hope I can do it again when a similar thing happens. And, it's been a good day when that happened. And sometimes, as you said, we're in a difficult time and it's easy to ride the wave of outrage and anger.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I noticed that if I'm full and something happens, and it's most likely, I hate to say this, but it's most likely to happen at home because I feel safer there and I can probably discharge more. But it's that literally nanosecond. Like, what did you do that for? I told you. Why didn't you? It sounds awful. But I notice it's there. And I suppose one of the things that I am trying to work with is just, okay, so what would be my part in a process? And I suppose I notice it showing up with clients who might come to coaching and, I'm in this dead end job that I'm really unsatisfied and I'm not moving in the direction that I want to. And, my partner at home is depressed and not bringing in enough of an income. And I can hear it really subtly in those kind of stories. And it's like, okay, but what's missing is, their sense of responsibility for the situation that they're in. I used to walk around it a lot more gently. And I'm noticing that in my work, I want to bring attention to it quicker because it's disempowering.
It is. And although I would say that, oh Lord, not many are raised and educated to find responsibility within themselves. It's not how usually we're being brought up and shaped by our society and environment.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying, right? So I read this thing. I'd obviously gone on this course, this program, and you know how sometimes you experience something and then it's not until maybe a year later that you pick it up and you think, oh, that's really smart. Anyway, on this,
if we don't forget it, with all the education.
So I wrote some notes. And I was rereading them, but it was talking about adulting. And so it was a business development program, and it was basically getting you to look at where were you not consistently showing up, not doing the work, not being disciplined, not doing the grunt of a business, and then blaming because maybe you bought a course or you tried it once and it didn't suddenly move you to six figures or whatever like they promised.
Well, it's in the title, so.
But it's that kind of, and I wrote down at the time, this adulting and entitlement, and so I read it the other day, and it just really struck me, particularly when we work with different parts of clients, so often younger parts are the ones that are the very reactive parts, and just this. Well, I think the conversation for me was, am I brave enough to talk about, are you adulting? Who's in charge? Is your adult in charge here? And can I look at myself and look at where my adult isn't in charge. So the example I want to give you is I notice how quite a lot of clients, and I have run this pattern for sure, is they will not have the outcome that they want, or they will know what they want. They'll question whether they want it. They'll get really frustrated and they'll kick off, but they don't do anything different. And so they run like this futility pattern, this frustration pattern. And then they wonder why their energy's drained. And I'll include myself in that sometimes.
In fact, Vanessa, I think it's a very common pattern that I have myself. That many of my clients, not excluding myself, because we're all human beings. To be honest, there were, sorry to say, but quite a few clients that I have said, look, right, if you're not going to change anything, it's dishonest for me to charge you out of the door and come to me if you really want to take action on, what you want to achieve. I know you're capable, but, I can't help you if you don't want to, actually take action and take responsibility here. Maybe ICF will throw me out of the door for saying things like that. But on the other hand, I would say that it's important to notice your own agency because it's there. And, because as coaches quite often, we're there for them to listen, not judge. And I don't. I really believe in the person, but, it's just a fact that it's not in my values to string a person along if they're not willing to, not saying man up or anything, but, actually take action and do something with the thing they want to do. And they have the solutions quite often, right? I'm sure that in your own sessions with your clients, you help them come up with solutions. They do have it. They do have the resources. It's just like maybe it's so easy to find the fault somewhere else, not take the responsibility, isn't it?
Well, and that's it. It is. And I'm wondering if we were to parallel that across to a work, an organizational context.
Yes.
How would you imagine yourself having that conversation, as a manager of someone or a leader of someone? Because that, you can't, it's different, isn't it?
Well, I think, it's setting, right. So it's setting expectations, and it's an interesting one. Because, for instance, I always say that my expectation of myself is that I don't complain. It's not about, coming in with solutions rather than problems, because obviously I don't want to lock anyone out, but it's like the standard I'm setting for myself is I'm trying to solve problems, and, if I need help, I come asking for help. I show ownership and responsibility, and if someone is reporting to me, I am valuing these qualities quite highly, and I, associate them with high performance. And I think that, in any area of life and business, being someone that takes ownership, takes responsibility, is, creative to solve solutions, it's a valuable thing to have. Obviously, I'm not saying to people how they're supposed to live their lives, and some people prefer to, not take ownership, prefer to live their life in different ways. Having said that, in business, in my teams, I do have a certain preference.
Yeah, so that's your preference.
Yes,
and,
I know,
and
right?
what I'm curious about, when you meet people who are in that show up and complain, but not actually do something, because there are a fair number of people like that in the world of work, aren't there?
So I'm trying to shape the environment and teams I'm working with to prefer people that approach these things the way I prefer it.
Yeah.
It's a very, soft answer, but I guess subconsciously is I really select for these qualities. And in business, but it doesn't really mean that I don't enjoy, and we've spoke just before about, a friend I have that's completely opposite to that, and that's perfectly fine. I do not select for these particular qualities outside of work in different circumstances. I'm not telling people how to live their lives, but if I'm a leader, it's my job to tell people how to work.
But doesn't it irritate you in a friend? That would really not irritate me.
I mean, yeah, it would. All right. So no. Well, okay. So, well, that's also blame. and placing fault, saying,
Yeah,
well,
I agree. Yeah,
you're not
then they
doing
should
this.
be.
We
Yeah,
agreed to this, and
yeah.
you're not doing this. And I say, fine. Well, I have it enough in work. Be yourself. I'm really valuing you for the person you are, for what you bring. I don't need you to be, task-driven project manager, whatever. No, it's not the essence of our relationship.
Oh, you got me spinning in my head now.
Oh my God!
Because you're sounding. How are you coming across to me? Almost too good to be true.
But come on, Vanessa. Okay, let's be honest, right? When we've started this wonderful podcast, you were often saying, well, TK, it was like, oh my God, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, and so on. I said, Vanessa, don't worry about it. It's just a podcast. It's fine. And it's, I've got my own faults. Believe me, we all do. But I'm trying myself, and yes, it is annoying. Yes, it is annoying when someone is late. Yes, it is annoying when someone doesn't prepare something that, but they have so many wonderful qualities. As a coach, I'm sure you have that too, that we're taught, and it's such a beautiful thing that we've enabled within ourselves to see the beauty in people and what their value and what they can bring, instead of constantly trying to find faults.
You sound very passionate about that.
I am. And you know why? Well, it's because, and we've spoken about it in the last episode of our podcast on the two before, when we spoke about, new relationships at work. And I had someone that, has been a position that's important in my organization that I did not appreciate. The way, they work, the way they show up, the let's say the style and vibe and whatever you want to call it. It's something that I thought, well, I've always hated that. But I thought to myself, all right, well, I can probably leave. But on the other hand, they do have a lot of positive qualities. Why don't I invest in their relationship? Why don't I find a way to work with this person, find what makes them tick, find, how to collaborate with them? Not easy per se. It wasn't, a smooth ride, but after a few weeks, after, maybe a month or so, I think we're working great together. And I'm just so proud. And it's just the experience of that has taught me so much. I know I'm a flippin' old dog, but on the other hand, I'm still learning. And this particular thing has been quite transformational for me in the last few weeks. This is why I'm so passionate about it.
If you're an old dog, I'm not sure what I am then. An even older dog.
Well, you still can learn new tricks, as do I.
Yeah, and so I love what you're saying, and I'm finding it uncomfortable because I've brought some vulnerability and said, "Oh, like I can still do that thing that blames," and I think what I take from what you're saying is the commitment to look for the qualities, look for the good, notice that reaction, not make yourself wrong for it, but just reset what you're looking at and what you're noticing. Am I hearing that right?
You are hearing that correct. But there's another thing that I think is, in my opinion, more important in what I said, which is make a decision. Like, okay, so do you value this? Do you value this person and this relationship or not? If you're willing to observe it's hard to observe the beauty when you're getting annoyed. And look, I am getting annoyed about it too. All of these stories that I told you today and to our listeners are things that started with annoyance. But I said, hold on a minute. I think, overall, there's a lot of quality, and I make a decision to invest in this relationship. I make a decision to invest in, podcast, company, and no one's perfect, right? If I'm not willing to make this, I don't want to be, violent, blaming or so on. I just, drift away. I'm not willing to spend my time with people that are sucking away my energy and my life's purpose, if that's the decision I make. But if someone has great qualities, well, it's all about forgiveness to myself and to them. I'm not casting the first stone. And to be honest, I see some great steps in, taking your part, how to break the cycle. And the first thing is pause the blame story, which is happening. And my one is usually like, make a decision, all right? So do you want to do you want to invest in it? Make the hard next steps to, find the beauty in someone? Or is it like, maybe it's too much. Maybe you have too much going on. And this is not worth your while to really, really, really push through it for yourself. So that's it. So I'm not perfect. By no means.
Yeah, and I think the step that I really like is the part about, okay, so what is my part in this? So
Yes.
if someone has responded in a certain way and I'm not okay with that, have I made an assumption? Or do you know what I mean? Have I, what part have I played in that? And often I do, I mean, we've talked about this before, haven't we? But I do find assumptions are a big thing. And
they jump in themselves, right? Well, sometimes
yeah,
it's just subconscious. Boop, it pops up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then to kind of just let go of what's mine and what's not mine, and all the emotion that's charged up in it, in that reaction, and go, okay, as you said, so what do I want here? What's important here for the relationship?
That's true, right? And if you want to have this relationship, and to be honest, sometimes it's like this tale of two monks on, one grabbing a wonderful woman and going through the river, and the other said, well, we can't touch women. I said, well, you're still carrying her. It's like, why is it that so many of us punish ourselves with, blame, fault, anger about either things or people? They don't really matter too much in our lives. Now, that's the thing that, I think it's even better to let go, because I see within my clients too, and often within myself, that, there are areas, all relationships in my life that don't necessarily bring value, but bring the negativity, and I struggle to let them go, even though I'm not talking nor having a real interaction with the person. So that's an internalized story that's within ourselves, and it's spinning and spinning, this blame and anger cycle, which also I think letting go of really helps.
It sounds that you've done a lot of reflection on this. I've got one example that, before we go, I just got one example that I can't get out of my head, which is, you're in a team,
Yes.
and there's someone that's not pulling their weight. And then the narrative in the team is a collective blame about the person that's not pulling their weight. What would you do there?
See, and we're getting back to the decision, right? This automatically what happens within, I guess, in my opinion, Vanessa, and I'm sure that you have your observations, this automatically happens within the individuals in the third entity of the team, that someone is being placed as a scapegoat, as someone that's being blamed. And I think a role of the leader is to make a decision, because sometimes we need to make a tough decision and modify the shape and composition of our team, again putting it lightly, because that can happen too. But if we believe, as a leader, if we believe there is value, and I hope there is, because I believe that people really can change if they want to, if we as leaders help them find themselves to actually do their work, to deliver the value, because this is why we're there, it's definitely worth investing. And now, if that's the case, which I hope there is, it's just shifting the approach, in my personal opinion, from blame to care. Right? That happens. I really care. I want to help. I understand that something happened that was difficult, but I care about my team, about people that work with. How can I help? That's a strong instinct in people that many people have.
Yeah. Yeah, it immediately softens the tone, doesn't it? And it takes the attention to a different place of
If
solution.
it's real and you really have care, many
Yeah.
people do.
Yeah. So thank you.
Emotion, right?
Yeah, thank you for that. And so before we close off, any last words of wisdom?
I had too many today. Come on, it's your turn. Today is like, because you've touched upon the topic that's quite close to what's happening for me currently. So that's why I'm just agitated.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I think I really appreciate you sharing your experience and your journey with it. And what I take from this more than anything is is make a decision. Like, okay, so notice the blame game, notice what your part is, but make a decision about what matters here. Which way am I going to drop it?
Yes.
So thank you for listening, and we wish you a pleasant weekend or week ahead, and we'll see you again soon.